started now بإذن الله تعالى. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم إنا نسألك الفهم عنك والبصيرة في أمرك والنفاذ في طاعتك والتوفيق إليك والهداية إليك. اللهم ثبتنا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. اللهم اجعل لنا من كل ضيق مخرجا ومن كل هم فرجا. اللهم اجعل لنا من بعد العسر يسرا. اصلح اللهم أحوالنا واغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا واختم بالباقيات الصالحات أعمالنا. Oh Allah, we call upon you, we pray to you, beseech you, we ask you by your names and attributes to bless us with understanding. Oh Allah, fill our hearts with your abundant light, and fill our homes with your abundant light. Make our hearts guided to the straight path. Make us of those who love you and love your Prophet ﷺ and love our deen. We ask you, Allah, to grant us a profound awareness of our qulub and to purify our hearts from every disease. Oh Allah, we ask you to rid our hearts from the diseases that plague it. Oh Allah, we ask you to rid our hearts from the diseases that plague it. Free our hearts from the disease of arrogance and of ostentation and of envy and of toxic worldly attachment. We ask you, Allah, to free our hearts from toxic worldly attachment and to free our hearts from all that displeases you. O Allah, we ask you to free our souls from the effects of ghafla and heedlessness and to bless us with profound spiritual awareness and to make that a means to reforming our behavior and connecting with the Quran and connecting with salah and connecting with dua. Oh Allah, we ask you to bless our lives and our livelihood and to make the best of our days the last of our days and the best of our actions the last of our actions and the best of all days the day we meet you and you're pleased with us. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ameen, ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Amma ba'd, jazakumullah khair for attending today after we took a 1 week pause for Eid al-Adha. And I ask you also to excuse my low frequency today. My voice is a little bit tired, but I didn't want to cancel the class just to maintain consistency, inshallah ta'ala. And inshallah, we're going to be going over one of the foundational diseases today. And that's the disease of hasad, envy. It's the other side of the coin of the disease that we went over last time. It's the other side of it. What was the disease we went over last time? It's been 2 weeks. Who remembers? Huh? No, not jealousy. What is it? There was something after conceit. Arrogance, right? We said conceit is like stage 1 cancer, and arrogance is like stage 4. Conceit is the stepping stone of arrogance, right? Because conceit is when someone is self-absorbed and links themselves with Allah, linking the blessing to their own doing instead of it being from Allah's favor upon us. So that's what ujub is. But kibr is a step further. For you to be so self-absorbed that you see all those around you as beneath you. And that you be so self-absorbed that you end up rejecting truth when it clearly comes your way. And the Quran actually describes this as the chief cause for baselessly rejecting the guidance of Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُجَادِلُونَ في آيات الله بغير سلطان أتاهم إن في صدورهم إلا كبر ما هم ببالغين. Those who dispute with the signs of Allah, the verses of Allah, the guidance of Allah, without any clear proof, because there's no way you could dispute the verses of Allah with clear proof, because if you understood those verses, you'll realize that any misconception that you have wanes in the face of the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent. So anyway, Allah says there's arrogance in their heart. إِن فِي صُدُورِهِمْ إِلَّا كِبْرٌ. They're too proud to be willing to change their ways. They're too proud to be willing to abandon the religion of their forefathers, or to abandon their culture, or to abandon what they've grown so attached to. So anyway, that was arrogance. Now we said envy is the other side of arrogance. How's that? How's that? What do you guys think? How is envy, hasad, the other side of arrogance? You're definitely onto something when you say that. Just in case you didn't hear what she said, because you think you deserve the blessing because you're better than them, so you should be more entitled to it. And hence, when you see them have it, right, it sparks toxic diseases in your heart, right? So that's definitely, and we're going to actually get to that. The causes of this book, Purification of the Heart, is going to tell us how arrogance is linked with envy. But there's something more. There's something, you want to say something? Go ahead.
So arrogance is like I have it all, but then envy is like you cannot have what I have, or you cannot have something better than me.
That's true. That's true. Arrogance is you feel like you have it all, and hence everyone else is low. And then the envy would be that you have to have it all and you don't want anyone else to have anything. That's true. I'll give you a hint at why it's exactly the other side of arrogance though. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We mentioned this in a previous class. Let's see if any of you guys remember how Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen is a cure from both of these diseases. It's a cure from arrogance and it's a cure from envy. How? Who knows how Alhamdulillah, all praises belonging to Allah. This verse in Surah Al-Fatiha is a cure from both diseases. You want to answer the question? Go ahead. Yes. Because everything belongs to Allah. And hence when I do an act of goodness, I don't attribute it to myself. I don't see myself as great. I see it as Allah conferring His favor upon me. And that makes me humbled. On the other end, when I see goodness appear on someone else's hand, I say what? I say what? That this is Allah's doing. The manifestation of His excellence. And I am content with what Allah wanted to show on the hands of Fulan or Fulana or whoever else between that. So that's why it's the other side. So here, I'll put it in other words. They say that when the recipient of a blessing gets consumed with the blessing and loses sight of the giver, when the recipient of a blessing gets consumed with the blessing and loses sight of the giver, they become arrogant. They become in a state of ujub and in a state of kibr. And then on the other end, when someone viewing a blessing gets consumed with that blessing that is for another, and loses sight of the giver, it causes hasad. Right? So these are the two diseases that come about by negatively engaging the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal. If I negatively engage it, then I'm either going to go down the path of kibr or I'm going to go down the path of hasad. Right? And guess what? Iblis alayhi la'natullah was the one who set the precedent for both of these diseases. On one end, they say that Iblis is Imam al-Mutakabbirin. He is the Imam of the arrogant ones. He leads Fir'aun in that regard, in this bracket. He's the top of his class, if you want to say. That's Iblis. And on the other end, they say, أَوَّلُ مَا عُصِيَ اللَّهُ بِهِ فِي السَّمَاءِ al-hasad. What was the first sin committed in the heavens? They say it's hasad. They say it's envy. Why? Because, look, Iblis is diseased internal state was exposed when Adam came in the picture. He couldn't hide it. That's it. Now, he has someone who's come along that's gained the favor of Allah way beyond what he could ever attain. Allah ordered him and the angels to prostrate before Adam alayhi salam out of honor and tashrif. And he could not find himself to do that. He envied Adam. He had hasad towards Adam. And that's why, what did he say? He said, لَإِنْ أَخَّرْتَنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ ذُرِّيَّتَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Just leave me be. Let me Adam and his progeny. If you do that, then I'm going to make sure that they don't maintain this blessing. I'm going to ruin it for them. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. That's hasad. That's hasad. Arrogance, yeah, sure. He had that hidden away in his heart. But when Adam alayhi salam came, that's when hasad exposed the arrogance he had. That's why he said, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ. I'm better than him. Why? Because he felt insecurity. He felt envious towards Adam. And hence, his envy manifested in a great deal of arrogance. I'm better than him. I'm from fire and he's from clay. So you see, many of the diseases of the heart, this is like a prime example in when you study diseases of the heart, that many of the diseases of the heart have this interconnectedness to them. They link with each other. If you have one disease, guess what? It might bring along with it a host of other diseases. If you have envy in your heart, guess what? It's going to bring arrogance along with it. Right? So, this is how we understand the story of Adam. The first sin committed in the heavens was hasad. And hasad, envy, exposed Iblis's arrogance. Right? It exposed Iblis's arrogance because, again, he wanted Adam to lose favor with Allah. And this shows you what? There's levels of arrogance. There's levels of envy. We're going to learn about this. There are levels to envy. Some types of envy, one type of envy is kind of innocent. It's because someone is going through a lot of problems in their personal life, and they feel so saddened by their personal state that it causes them, a sense of loss when they see others excelling around them. And they might not even realize that they're doing hasad. They might not realize it, right? So many different examples. Someone not prosperous in their material pursuits, right? They want to get a job, they want to save up money, and they look around them to their friend circles and those around them. Everyone went way past them, right? And this person is in a sense of misdirection, and it makes them really sad. I wish I could do what Fulan could do, or what Fulana, I wish I had what Fulana had. And these feelings build up, and the person starts looking at others with an envious eye, and they might not realize it. They don't really have malicious intent, but sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it is with malicious intent. Sometimes it's someone looking at the blessings of another and saying to themselves, I wish this person didn't have that. I wish I had that and this person did not. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. It extends even further than that. When someone actively tries to sabotage another person's blessings. And this is the ugliest type of hasad. This is the ugliest type of hasad. And that's what Iblis had. He said, leave me be, and I'll make sure they all go to hell along with me. A'udhu billah. A'udhu billah. From this state of mind. And you know what? When you apply it to humanity and human beings, you could find a whole lot of real life circumstances that apply to it. Sometimes this sabotage would be with people and their families. You can think of 1,000,001 stories, right? Say if one sibling, let's look at the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, for example. Story of Yusuf alayhi salam. One sibling is the favorite. by the parents, right? I'm going to make sure he doesn't stay the favorite. I'm going to do stuff. I'm going to start gossiping. I'm going to put a few seeds of evil here, a few seeds of evil there, and I'm going to come up with some false rumors there. And guess what? I'm going to make sure that my mother, my father, hates fulan or fulana because I have envy in my heart, right? Sometimes it's with people in their marriages. Sometimes people might see someone happy in their marriage, and this happiness triggers anger in their heart. Let me do something to sabotage this marriage. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. And brothers and sisters, there's too many stories. Look at this. This is what you call diseases of the heart manifesting in behavioral issues. One of these behavioral issues is namima. You guys know what namima is? What's namima? Namima, no, ghiba is backbiting, right? Namima is something more than backbiting. Gossip for a certain end, right? That is to divide between the hearts, right? That's what namima is. You know what? You two are really good friends. I don't have a good friend like that. I'm going to make sure you two don't stay good friends. A'udhu billah. So I'm going to start saying a few words here, a few words there, and next thing you know it, I'm going to make sure that these people are at each other's throats. That's namima. You know the Prophet ﷺ said in hadith, لا يدخل الجنة قتات. Someone who is namam, someone who divides the hearts of people will not enter Jannah. What does that mean? What does that mean? When you hear a hadith that says that, are they Muslim? They're still Muslim. We're not suggesting that they're not Muslim. Of course they're still Muslim. What does it mean that they're not going to enter Jannah? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? It means something more. There's something more in there. Yeah, it's true, their faith is not complete. But when the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يدخل الجنة قتات, someone who does namima and divides between the hearts of people will not enter Jannah. What does that mean? What? They're the devil? They might be a human devil, you're right. All right, what do you want to say, sister? No, not that it's close to kufr. It's not close to kufr. You have to pay for it. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Either punishment in the grave. If that's not sufficient, then maybe difficulties and calamities on the Day of Judgment. If that's not sufficient, then guess what? Ticket to hellfire. Go and roast therein a little bit. And once you're cleansed from the effects of your namima, then you'll go to Jannah. That's what it means. When the Prophet ﷺ says, someone who does this sin, there's a manifestation of hasad, by the way, right? So we see there's so many stories like that. We were talking about marriage at the time, like when I first mentioned it. So someone might go to the husband and say, how could you let her do that? How could you let her talk like that to you? You need to put her in her place. And then someone might go to the wife and say, oh, how could you let him treat you like that? How could you just follow along? And then guess what? They end up tearing the marriage apart because of what? Namima. Because this namima, behind it is hasad. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. This happens with people in their works too. People in their workspaces and people in their friendships. It happens at every level, by the way. Hasad's a very, very bad. You know what happens in business a lot too? In business, someone works in the same line as you, right? This guy has a very successful, I'm not talking about anybody, but has a very successful restaurant. For example, alhamdulillah. Very successful restaurant. And you know what? I want to succeed too. Sometimes, shaitan's tricky, man. Shaitan is very tricky. He doesn't come to a person who has some decency in their heart and put in it the most devilish thoughts. He guides them there, right? This is one of the asalib, one of the tactics of the devil. How can I get someone good to accept something so awful? How can I do that? He starts off, hey, that person's successful. I want to succeed too. Maybe I could learn a thing or two from this person. You know what? Maybe since he's so successful, I should work in this line as well. The thoughts go and the thoughts go, you know what? He has a really good location. Maybe I could get some of this business. I would give me a head start, right? And what's the big deal? If he's so good, he'll continue to succeed anyway, right? Right? So let me go open a store, another restaurant, right across the street. And let every person try their best for themselves. And you know what? Let me go a step further. How can I steal some of this guy's customers? He has enough, right? He's making a lot of money. There's some ways I could steal their customers, right? Let me do certain things to sabotage. Then you get from something innocent to something very, very ugly, right? This is hasad. Hasad is someone actively trying to ruin another person, or passively trying to ruin another person from far away by ill will and negative feelings towards that person, right? Allowing that to spew and allowing that to simmer in his heart or her heart. We're talking about a really bad disease here, brothers and sisters. What's the tartib? Where are we going with this? We're going to talk about envy right now, hasad. Then we're going to talk about another disease. We'll see if we get to it today or not, depending on how much strength my voice has. But the next disease we're going to talk about is hubbud dunya. It's literally translated as love of this world. Now, of course, why would that be something bad? We're going to get to it, inshallah. You could name it something else. Toxic worldly attachment. Toxic worldly attachment, because that's the type of love of this world that's negative. Toxic worldly attachment. After we speak about hubbud dunya, which is, according to some, it's actually the core disease. The core disease, and all other diseases spawn from it. We're going to talk about spiritual paralysis. Your body could be paralyzed. Your soul could also be paralyzed. What's that word? What's that disease? That's spiritual paralysis, essentially spiritual paralysis. Who could think of what it is? You want to see? Very good. Heedlessness. Word for it in Arabic, ghafla. That's spiritual paralysis. So that's the three that we're going to go over next, inshallah ta'ala. So it's this deliberate order. Let's start with the PowerPoint, and then we'll transition to the two books that we're going to use today. The Handbook of Spiritual Medicine and Purification of the Heart. Hasad. Some of this stuff I already verbally covered, so we'll go through it a little quicker. You guys can see it? You guys can see it? It's a little small. All right, the first sin in the heavens and the earth. Is it better now? Better? All right, good. By the way, as we do every single time, we have the Slido. We sent it to the WhatsApp group. So, please make sure that if you have questions, you can send it through the Slido, inshallah. Ahmed, is the live stream good, by the way? I got a message, someone said it's off. Is it good? Let's check. Is it good, Sister Noor? No? Uh-oh. It's good? It's been on? Yeah? All right, cool. I was about to restart the whole thing. No, I'm just kidding. We already said 2 common reactions to blessings, arrogance and envy. And look, there's this really nice verse in the Quran. You can see it right there. Summary of worldly pursuits. This is in Surah Al-Hadid. It tells you a lot about what causes envy in people's hearts. Look, Allah says in اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. Know that the life of this world is but amusement and diversion and adornment and boasting to one another and competition and increase of wealth and children. Ya Allah, this is a beautiful verse of the Quran. Think about, like, what type of, sometimes hasad comes from nonsense. It comes from nonsense, wallahi. People, when they see the haqq and haqiqah, when they're in the reality of the akhirah, they'll be like, oh my goodness, how on earth did I waste a second of my dunya over utter nonsense? Sometimes hasad comes from people and what they wear. That this person has, very nice clothing and attire, I'm going to envy them for it. A'udhu billah. Sometimes it comes over petty worldly things. Even the gadgets that people own, the cars that people have, the houses in which people live, the jobs that people have. Even when it comes to affluence, and you talk about weddings and all that those subcultures with people and their cultures, subcultures of hasad over who had the best wedding, right? Best wedding. This person spent 20,000. Oh, I spent 30,000. Oh, I spent 50,000. I take the whole cake, right? A'udhu billah. Wallahi. Hasad reduces human intellect to frivolous matters. That's what this verse teaches us about. Sometimes hasad's over real stuff, right? Sometimes look at وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. Sometimes hasad's over children. Sometimes people are afflicted and tested that they can't have children. Or, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't facilitate for them an opportunity to have a child. It's a big test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It takes a mountain of yaqeen to be able to submit to Allah's decree in this matter. Sometimes people have hasad over serious stuff. Sometimes it's about health circumstance and health situation. Someone finds themselves afflicted with many illnesses and they have to take all kinds of medication, and they see the healthy around them and they wish that they had the health that they had. That's another type of hasad. And you'll find that a lot of these diseases, just like we said with riya, ostentation, showing off, they come from a deficiency in yaqeen, a deficiency in certainty in Allah's will. Being certain in Allah's will is a source of healing from a lot of things. It is. When someone has hasad, that means that they don't have full clarity that what Allah chose for them is absolutely the best for them, right? And that's why, the Prophet ﷺ gave us words of healing. Very few words, wallahi. Solution to all kinds of things, right? ارضى بما قسم الله لك تكن أغنى الناس. Be content with what Allah wrote for you. You'll be the wealthiest of people. Right? Sometimes people have hasad. You would not even imagine this unless you experienced it. Sometimes people will have hasad over family. Right? I don't have any family around me. Right? I don't have my parents in my life or my siblings in my life. And I envy those who have a healthy family. Or I have a envy towards those who have a solid support structure around them. These are words, actually, that the scholars taught us. It took a lifetime. It's one thing to know this. It's another thing to really allow it to sink down into your heart and become your world outlook on things. Be content, truly content with what Allah wrote for you, and you'll be the wealthiest of people, right? One of the scholars of the past, He said that I have accompanied righteous people. I think it was like, what he said, I don't know if it was 20 years, he said, I have accompanied righteous people for a large portion of my life. And I have not learned from them more than 2 statements. One of them was, time is like a sword. If you don't take hold of it, it's going to hurt you. If you don't take advantage of it, it's going to hurt you. Right? And then the other one is to look at what's in your hands and truly be content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has apportioned for you. Look, the rest of the verse, he says, you want to know what all of this is like, the nonsense and the real reasons for envy? He says this is like the example of a rain whose resulting plant growth pleases the tillers. يعجب الكفار الزراع ليغيظ بهم الكفار. Right? Then it dries and you see it turned yellow. Then it becomes scattered debris. This is how the Quran teaches us to heal from what many people find themselves doing in their dunya. Right? So look, we read the rest of it. The first sin that was committed in the heavens was hasad. Right? Now, this slide is going to tell us, how do you zoom out? Oops. All right. This slide is going to tell us a little bit about the envy that's mentioned in the Quran. Look at the envy that's mentioned in the Quran. Envy was listed as just as kibr was arrogance is a reason for rejection, so is envy. It's listed as one of the obstacles in the way of faith. Why? For the kuffar during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when he received revelation, they envied him. Like, who is he? He's an orphan from the tribe of Banu Hashim and Banu Abdul Muttalib. He's a nobody. He's not the most knowledgeable among us. Yeah, sure, he's honest and trustworthy. He's a Sadiq al-Amin. But he's not one of our nobles. He's not one of our leaders. He's not one of our scholars. What did they say? They said, if only this Quran was revealed to one of the 2 great men in the 2 cities. One of these men, his name was Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira. He was the great one from among Quraysh. Knowledgeable, noble, wealthy, he had it all. They envied Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How could he get this revelation? Look at another verse. They did not accept what Allah had apportioned Muhammad in terms of revelation. And Allah told them, أَهُمْ يَقْسِمُونَ رَحْمَةَ رَبِّكَ? Are they the ones who really distribute the mercy of Allah? No. نَحْنُ قَسَمْنَا بَيْنَهُمْ مَعِيشَتَهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. There's another verse that gives healing from hasad. Look, this verse gives healing from hasad and envy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in Surah Zukhruf, He's saying, we're the ones who distributed their lives and their livelihood among them. And we've elevated some over others. What? So that they may find use in one another. Sometimes people have envy towards each other for their jobs, right? Someone might have a blue-collar job, another person. Someone might break their back laboring long hours in their day just to make a few bucks. And someone comes along and signs a few papers and they get paid astronomical amounts of money that this guy could only dream of. That's how dunya is. You might say, well, this person built themselves up to get that success where they could sign a few papers and make a whole lot of money. But that's not always the case. Sometimes people are born into it. Sometimes people are given it without much effort. Or sometimes some people don't have opportunity. Brothers and sisters, this reminds me of something. If you if you're someone who has family back home, think with me for a moment. Right now, you're in this country. You have opportunities to work. You have opportunities to go to schools, get degrees. Guess what? Most of the world doesn't have opportunities. Most of the world doesn't have opportunity. And you know, if you've never lived overseas, you probably don't really, you can't really connect with this. What do you mean they don't have opportunities? If you know what's going on the other side of the world, there are people with PhDs who are taxi drivers. There are people with PhDs who, I'm not joking, their job is to work as a taxi driver. Not that that's something lowly, but they tried so hard, but the doors of opportunity were not in front of them. They have to live in such impoverished circumstances. And when someone is oblivious to these realities and they go to social media and guess what? I'm going to show the whole world all my blessings, right? A vacation here, a vacation there, buy a house there, buy a car there, and everyone who doesn't have that opportunity back home is looking, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I could do that. Sometimes they can't help themselves. That you'll find that there's hasad in the heart because of their difficult circumstances. That's why there's a beautiful hadith. I know I'm digressing away from this, but it's a reflection on this ayah that I just recited to you. There's a beautiful hadith that gives us an attitude towards living. It's not about the glamour. It's not about displaying things to the world. This is one of the things that social media has wrongfully programmed us to do. Social media has wrongfully programmed us that the only meaningful life experience is found through the lens of a camera displayed to the world. If it's not through a lens of a camera and it's not displayed to the world, it's not any fun. Right? That's why when someone sees something amazing and sees something that's really fun, first thing they do, take out the camera. Wow. Oh, wow. Picture that, picture that. And sometimes you might find yourself, you're going in the middle of nature and you're not really looking at nature. You're looking at it through the camera. Oh, wow, this is a nice picture. Oh, wow, this would make a nice background. Oh, right, let me take a picture with this tree and then that tree. And I'm not even looking at the tree. I'm just looking at it through my camera, right? That happens to people. Now, it's not to say that phones are bad or that social media is bad, but this rewiring causes a lot of damage. Look at this hadith of the Prophet. استعينوا على إنجاح الحوائج بالكتمان فإن كل ذي نعمة محسود. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, seek assistance in the fulfillment of your needs by concealing them. I'm going to say it again. Seek assistance in the fulfillment of your needs by concealing them, because everyone with a blessing is envied for it. So this shows us the attitude towards blessings. You know what? I want to preserve my blessings. I'm not going to shove it down everyone's throat on social media. I might say, well, I'm just building memories. I want to put it on my Facebook so that it could come up as a memory 5 years down the line. Come on, man. Find another way to find memories. Find another. You don't need Facebook to preserve your memories. Alhamdulillah, you have a brain for one purpose or another, I'm guessing, right? Or do something else. Realize that there are tons of people around the world that are severely underprivileged. They don't have nearly the opportunity you have. So be very careful in how you display. It's on a human level. It's one thing to not have envy towards another person, but on a human level, I also must not cause this feeling within the hearts of those around me. Right? So anyway, let's go on. Rejection rooted in envy. There's another verse that states that when they undermine the companions. Right? وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَوْ كَانَ خَيْرًا مَا سَبَقُونَ إِلَيْهِ. Look at this impeccable logic. What did they say? They said, the disbelievers said, if there was any goodness in this message of Muhammad, we would have been first to it. There's no way that these lowly people are going to beat us to something good. So you see, when I said it in that tone, What other disease does it remind you of? There you go. That's what one of the sisters was saying earlier. Arrogance, envy. They go hand in hand, you see, in a lot of ways, right? مَا نَرَاكَ اتَّبَعَكَ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ هُمْ أَرَاذِلُنَا. The lowly ones are the ones who, the peasants are the ones who followed you, right? Sometimes these, and this is one of the strange things, أعوذ بالله. Sometimes you'll find that these diseases are embedded in cultural realities. These diseases are sometimes embedded in cultural realities. I was having a conversation with someone recently about a particular culture. I'm not going to say which one. But this culture has a sort of like a caste system, right? And an individual from this culture refused to speak to another individual, even though they're same line of work, they're supposed to be working together, small Muslim community, so on and so forth. But why? I'll never go to talk to this person. You know why? He's a peasant. A'udhu billah. Right? A'udhu billah. How can I go talk to a peasant? In the caste system, these people that are from this part of the country, these guys are nobodies. They're peasants. I can't talk to a peasant. That's going to bring me down. A'udhu billah. We think that this just applies to the kuffar of Quraysh. We think, oh man, no, it doesn't just apply to the kuffar of Quraysh. The kuffar of Quraysh, their mindset and their attitudes is still present among us. Right? You'll find this across the board. Brothers and sisters, in many different things. Oh, there's no way I'll ever marry into that culture. Why? Because, we are better than them, right? Look at this satanic, they're not going to say it like that. They'll sugarcoat it in another way that conceals it, right? It hides it a little bit. We're better than that culture. There's no way that I would ever allow my daughter to get married to someone who looks like you fill in the blank, right? Why? Nah, we're better than that. A'udhu billah. A'udhu billah. Fi'lan. Hasad of the Prophet. Look at this. Strange logic. The Quran says, أَمْ يَحْسُدُونَ النَّاسَ عَلَى مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. What is this verse talking about? Do they have envy towards people for what Allah gave them by His grace? That's what the verse is saying. This is referring to the hasad, the envy that Quraysh had towards Muhammad ﷺ for him receiving the revelation. Right? So this is a little bit more about what envy could do to the hearts. Right? Let me figure out how to go to the next slide. Looks like when I zoom in, it causes some problems. What on earth was that? Anyway, look, why is hasad such a fatal disease? Why is it such a fatal disease? Look what it says here. You're essentially judging Allah. He was wrong to give so-and-so this blessing. It also is associated with another disease. We only showed arrogance. Is it associated with something else? Yeah, there's another disease called su'adhan billah. Having bad assumptions of Allah. Right? Su'adhan billah. It's another disease of the heart. I'm judging Allah. How could He give this person? I should have it. This person should not have that. If you're questioning the blessing, you're essentially questioning the giver of the blessings. The rest we went over it. Look, there's a lot of hadiths that are on this. I know a bunch of this is in Arabic. I apologize that not everything could be translated, but I'm going to translate it verbally. And you could write it down in your notebook if you need. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions in the hadith a few social diseases that you could find rooted in hasad and envy. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تحاسدوا, don't have envy towards one another. لا تناجشوا, لا تباغضوا, لا تدابروا, ولا يبيع بعضكم على بيع بعض وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us, hey, you know what? Be brothers and sisters for the sake of Allah truly. What does it mean to be a brother or a sister for someone else for the sake of Allah? What does that mean? Don't have envy. That's one. And then وَلَا تَنَاجَشُوا. This is referring to something else, a toxic business practice that is relating to deception, right? I'm going to make people pay more than what this item deserves. Not really relating to our subject. It's talking about something in auctions, right? وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا. You're driving up the price, basically, deceitfully. That's what najash refers to. Is to deceitfully drive up the price by making it seem like it's a coveted item, and it's not actually like that. You know, so you deceitfully do that. وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا. Don't have animosity towards one another. And don't turn your backs on one another. And don't sell upon the sale of another. And be truly brothers for the sake of Allah. How does hasad lead to ruin of nations? Let's go through this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, دَبَّ إِلَيْكُمْ دَاءُ الْأُمَمِ الْحَسَدُ وَالْبَغْضَاء هي الحالقة لا أقول تحلق الشعر ولكن تحلق الدين والذي نفسي بيده لا تدخلوا الجنة حتى تؤمنوا ولا تؤمنوا حتى تحابوا أفلا أنبئكم بما يثبت ذاكم لكم أفشوا السلام بينكم. Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, there are two diseases that are found within you that have ruined nations before you. What are the two diseases that have ruined nations? Envy, animosity. Al-hasad wal-baghdha. The Prophet ﷺ said, هي الحالقة. This is the thing that shaves religion. It ends, it ruins religion. It ruins it to its core. لا أقول تحلق الشعر. I'm not talking about something that shaves your hair. It's something that shaves your sense of taqwa. And he says, by Allah, you're not going to enter Jannah until you believe. And you won't believe until you love one another. Do you want to know what's going to cause that sense of love? Spread salam among each other. Right? So that's another hadith that shows us the effects, the dangers of envy. Right. So let's switch gears. We'll come back here inshallah in a little bit. But because of the sake of time, let's take a look at this book here. Let's take a look at this book. Where's this book? There's a PDF of it in the WhatsApp group. There's Purification of the Heart by Shaykh Hamza. We're going to have one of the brothers who's going to read for us page 27. Envy, the beginning of envy. Don't read the poem. Start from envy is a severe disease.
Bismillah. Bismillah. Okay. Envy, hasad, is a severe disease of the heart that some scholars hold to be the root of all diseases, while others opine that parent disease goes back to covetousness, tama'.
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 Yes, covetousness. We're going to talk about that one. We didn't do it yet. But some of them say envy is the root disease. You see how many things it relates to? Go ahead.
Whatever rank envy occupies in the hierarchy of diseases, most scholars will agree that it is the first manifestation of wrongdoing and the first cause of disobedience against God. When Shaitan refused to obey God when commanded to bow down before the new creation Adam, the first human being. Nothing prevented Iblis from bowing down except his envy of Adam, for God chose Adam to be his vicegerent on earth instead of Iblis. Iblis grew arrogant and objected to the command that he show Adam any honor, for Iblis saw himself a creation from fire, superior to his clay creature. When confronted with his disobedience, Shaitan did not seek forgiveness from Allah. Enviers develop a mindset that makes it impossible for them to admit they are wrong. To manifest envy is to manifest...
That's an interesting statement. Read that one again, slower.
Enviers develop a mindset that makes it impossible for them to admit they are wrong.
Go ahead.
To manifest envy is to manifest one of the characteristics of the most wretched creature, Shaitan.
Brothers and sisters, you know, when we read that, a mindset that makes it impossible for them to admit they're wrong. Need to be, you know, the nafs is very tricky. It's a very tricky thing to deal with because it could easily play tricks on you. Meaning that sometimes a person's real life experience might be diluted by their nafs. Some people might be so convinced by a fictitious, fraudulent lie that their mind has, that this lie becomes reality. That's how powerful the nafs is. The nafs could alter reality in the eyes of a person. What's the proof of this? What do you mean? What do you mean alter? Look what the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith. Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith that the nafs could reach a state where it sees something that is utterly good as something very bad. And it sees something utterly bad as something very good. This shows us that the nafs could even corrupt and contaminate life experience, right? Like you see this like it is right in front of you. The nafs could come along and make you see it as though it's something different. This is something scary, right? This is something scary. This happens, because sometimes it manifests in people's attitudes and their relationships, right? Something might be utterly innocent, but because the person is in a toxic state within, they see even innocent things in a very negative light. Take that in for a moment. There's another disease of the heart that before this course finishes, we're going to go over it. It's one of the fatal diseases. Su'u dhann, bad assumptions. It's a very fatal disease. Right? Again, but what we're trying to highlight here is the nafs has the power to alter reality as I see it through my eyes. This might be utterly fine in itself, but because my nafs is contaminated, oh, you did this to me. You said that. I know you meant this. The person's like, what on earth? I didn't do anything. I didn't mean that. What are you talking about? But that's because the nafs has conditioned this person to perceive things in a certain way. A'udhu billah. Go on, read on. In Arabic,
hasad or hasad is the person who carries and emanates this envy, and his object of envy is called masud.
No, so we have hasud or hasid.
Okay.
And the object of your envy is mahsud.
Mahsud. The Quran teaches us to seek refuge in God from the evil of the envier, hasad, and when he envies, the Prophet ﷺ said, the envy consumes good deeds the way fire devours dry wood.
That's a hadith. Envy consumes good deeds the way fire devours dry wood. Go ahead.
The Prophet ﷺ also said, every possessor of any blessing is envied. Someone of means will have someone who envies him for what he possesses. Even two street sweepers will envy one another. The one who pulls his cart on his own will envy the sweeper who has a donkey.
Okay, skip over the next paragraph.
Okay. The Prophet ﷺ said...
Or you know what, read it.
Okay. While it is believed that envy can bring about harm to the one envied, ultimately it is the envier who is harmed the most. The evil eye is generally related to envy, though not necessarily so. Some people simply have the eye, some type of psychic power that does not require envy. Every culture has a concept of the evil eye. In some cultures, parents used to pierce the ears of their firstborn males and dress them as little girls for the first 5 years, since firstborn males were so coveted. Many Chinese conduct rituals to prevent the evil eye from afflicting their homes by placing mirrors on the walls to reflect evil looks. The word invidious means envy, and it originally meant to look at something with a malevolent or evil eye.
So basically what he's trying to say is this concept of envy having the effect on other people is something that's always been present in human culture. Now, is it superstitious to feel like someone who envies you could hurt you? Look at what he says about what our tradition. So this is what other traditions did. And you guys might see, and of course, you guys ever seen that people put an eye, right, to sort of repel the envy of others away from you. This is something that is a very bad practice. A lot of Muslims have this and they're corrupted by it. They don't know. No, the eye doesn't protect you from hasad, right? What protects you from hasad? Remembering Allah. Remember, that protects you from hasad. Putting an eye on your doorstep is not going to push away any harm from you. In fact, someone who believes that their aqeedah and their faith is actually tainted, it's something that needs to be corrected. It's very wrongful for a Muslim to possess this eye with the intention of it protecting them from any harm. I want to keep it in my on a bracelet or a necklace or in my wallet or in my home or in my car. No, this is all nonsense, right? Let's see what Islam teaches us about the evil eye. Go ahead.
The Prophet ﷺ said, the evil eye is true.
Al-aynu haqq.
The evil eye is different from superstition, which the Prophet ﷺ worked to eradicate from the minds of people. The Arabs believed, for example, that when the moon eclipsed, it meant that a great person died. And so it happened that the moon eclipsed the day the Prophet ﷺ's infant son, Ibrahim, died. Many of the Arabs were actually impressed that the moon eclipsed for his son. A charlatan would have seized the moment to get mileage out of such an event, but the Prophet ﷺ announced to people, the moon is a sign of Allah. The sun is a sign of Allah. They do not eclipse for anyone.
What do we get out of this? Look, is there any sometimes extreme attitude towards the subject of the evil eye in the lives of people? Does it sometimes go to an extreme and exceed its bounds? Yeah, he gave us some cultural manifestations. Put an eye, and you got to put mirrors up. And the weirdest one was when he said dressing your newborn baby boy as a girl. So then, anyway. But do sometimes people go to extremes with the subject of hasad? Yeah. Sometimes every ailment in the world is attributed to hasad, right? Two spouses fight, automatically someone must have envied me, right? It can't be a real cause, and someone must have envied us, right? I lost some money, someone must have envied me, right? I'm going through a tough time, someone must envy what I have. Someone has to really think highly of themselves for them to be envied at every turn in their life. Every step, envy. Do you really think that highly, that everyone's looking at you all the time? Are you really that special? Right? So anyway, so can this go to extreme? Yes. Should the mu'min be mindful of envy? Absolutely. And that's why the Prophet, there's actually a hadith, another hadith that says that there's no disease that can cause a person to enter into his graves, no spiritual disease like envy that could cause a person to enter into his grave. And they said that many of the residents of the grave have gotten there because of envy, right? And so there's hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that shows us that envy could have catastrophic effects, even on people's health. People's health and their physical well-being could be because of envy. And there's real life circumstances that show this. Sometimes someone might be experiencing medical ailments or ailments that can't be explained medically. And this happens. Like something's going on. I don't know why I feel this way. I've gone to so many doctors and they say there's nothing wrong with me, right? And can it possibly be because of the effects of envy? Yeah, it can be. It can be because of the effects of envy. Doesn't mean that there's no other explanation. It could be a mental health issue too. We're not saying that. But sometimes people go to the other extreme. So we have one extreme on one end. The other extreme is people think that the subject of envy is superstition. No, if it was superstition, the Prophet ﷺ would not stand for it. Our deen would not stand for it. No, envy is not something that is purely superstition. The souls interact just as the bodies do. It is a form of spiritual oppression, right? Why is it so hard to envision or imagine that there could be such form of spiritual oppression, just as people do physical oppression? Hasad is a form of spiritual oppression. Just as sihr is as well. Black magic is also a form of spiritual oppression. That our Prophet ﷺ himself experienced in hadith in Sahih Bukhari, in the most authentic of books after the Quran. These things need to be understood, and given proper context. No doubt. You can't go extreme like this, just as you can't go extreme like that, right? It's a balance between both extremes. No, there is a spiritual reality. Why do you deny that? Someone who is unaccepting of supernatural occurrences will ultimately lead themselves down the road of not believing in God, right? Because this mind thinks what? I can't put my hand on it, I'm not going to believe it. Ultimately what? They're going to deny the miracles. They're going to deny prophethood, revelation. Yeah, they're going to start doubting, I can't see God. I can't see Allah. Why should I believe in Him? Right? So the disenchanted mindset that comes about due to secularism is also very problematic. So we need to balance between these two extremes. All right, let's read on a little bit more. Go ahead.
Imam Mawlud explains that envy is exhibited when one desires that another person lose a blessing he or she has. This loss could be anything big or small, a house, a car, or a job. An envious person can become resentful that a coworker was promoted, to the point that he wishes that person lose the position. A woman may envy another woman because of her husband, such that she hopes that a marital crisis separate the couple. A man grows envious of another man's wife. There are endless variations of envy, but a common thread is the desire that someone lose a blessing. In some, envy arises over what one perceives to be a blessing in someone else's possession. As the Imam says, it reaches the point that an envier would himself remove the blessing if he were able to do so through some kind of ruse. But what is perceived as a blessing could be based on completely false notion. One may desire something that in reality is nothing but trouble and difficulty. Conversely, there could be a blessing hidden in something difficult.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. Things are not like they seem, right? How many times have people found themselves in a situation in life where they thought that Fulan or Fulana had it all? I wish I had this person's life. This person, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. And then guess what? When they realize, when the cat's out of the bag and they realize what's behind the scenes, they're like, oh man, I never knew that this person had to deal with all these kinds of things, right? That's why sometimes, sometimes it's important not to polish your life and make it seem as though everything's perfect. So, sometimes we get into that mindset, like I want to always show the perfect face to the world. Well, guess what? Sometimes that might be to your detriment. You know how many people have, for example, so many people, how many people have affluence and money, and the source of their torment in their life is that they had money? They wish they didn't have the money. Why? Why would anyone not? Now think about this for a moment. Think of this for a moment. Why on earth would someone who has millions wish they didn't have millions? Can you think of a reason? What? Oh, good job. That's a big one. That is something that plagues famous people, by the way. They can't trust anybody. Because everyone's out to get, what they have. They don't know who to trust. They can't build genuine relationships. It's very, very difficult. And it becomes a very, very lonely world. Sometimes they might even disguise their wealth just to experience what normal people experience for a day. You think of that? Man, people would die for millions if they didn't have them. But when they realize what millions could do to you, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, right? And وَهَلُمَّ جَرًّا. Sometimes, for example, people might wish for good looks and appearance. oh, I wish I had the good looks and appearance of fulan or fulana. And they don't realize that sometimes that is actually the most taxing thing on this person in their life, right? You could keep on thinking of examples. Don't think the grass is greener. This is a healing source for people as well. For people who feel envy in their hearts. Don't think the grass is greener on the other side. Don't think that just because someone has kids, there's some people who, the world's a funny, subhanAllah, the world teaches us a lot, life teaches us a lot of lessons. This unique creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. There are people in this dunya who their source of torment is the fact that they can't have children. And there are other people in this dunya that their source of torment is that they have children. Some people are put in their graves because of their children. Literally. Their lives are ruined because of their children. Their children are like a plague upon them because of all the shar that they do and all of the fires that they have to keep on putting out, chasing after this person. Right? You don't know. You really don't know. That's why if you take those words into heart, وَارْضَ بِمَا قَسَمَ اللَّهُ لَكَ تَكُنْ أَغْنَى النَّاسِ. Be happy with the reality that Allah gave you because your merciful Creator gave you what He gave you for a reason. If you realize that, then you'll be the wealthiest of people. That's how beautiful our deen is and what it teaches, right? Let's read on. We're going to skip over. Continue reading from treatments. Skip over a page.
Treatment. Imam Mawlud prescribes 2 cures for envy. The first is to consciously oppose one's caprice. The Arabic term here for caprice is hawa. It is derived from the Arabic word that means to fall. It is also related to the Arabic word for wind. One's passion is like the wind, in that it comes, stirs up emotion, and then dies down. One cannot really see it, only its effect.
I want to heal from envy, right? You know what? This is something that we're all vulnerable for. Don't think for a second you're not. And again, how can I start healing from it? I need to counterbalance this disease, right? I'm starting to feel ill feelings towards fulan. You know what? I'm going to go out of my way to make dua for fulan. I'm going to, if I feel that, something's brewing inside me, I'm going to make a lot of dua for this person. I'm going to fight against the envy with the opposite. I'm going to go against my whim. I'm not going to succumb to ill feelings towards another human being. I'm going to make dua for this person. May Allah give this person more. May Allah give this person the best. May Allah make this person happy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, facilitate for them their affairs, and so on and so forth. This is how you counterbalance. Same thing with what we said with another disease. What did we say is a cure for riya, showing off? How did we counterbalance that? Huh? Showing off? No, not showing off. There's something that you could do to build a greater sense of sincerity. It's a cure for ostentation. What was it? Go ahead. There you go. I'm going to counterbalance it by doing something in private, right? I feel this urge to show off. You know what? I'm going to do something where no one else could see it. I'm going to do it in private, right? Same thing with hasad. All right, what else? What other cures can He give us? Let's see. Go on.
More often than not, following one's whims takes a person away from the truth. The history of humanity is replete with false notions that have come and gone. The truth, however, is something that is fixed, and that can be recognized as the truth if one is truly objective. As for caprice, it has no foundation. For this reason, Imam Mawlud says one must resist his caprice. The Quran repeatedly warns against following one's caprice. It speaks of bygone communities who grew arrogant when God's messengers came to them with admonitions, teachings that did not agree with their soul's caprice.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Pause there for a moment. This is actually another disease we're going to talk about on another day. Hawa, being whimsical. Skip, start from the next paragraph. Another treatment is to know with certainty.
Yep, another treatment is to know with certainty that holding envy against another person brings harm to oneself. Human's nature, most primordial instinct is to avoid harm. It is easier for a person to repel negative feelings when he or she realizes these feelings hurt the soul. A disgruntled worker passed over for a promotion becomes anxious and angry. two related emotions that harm his soul, mind, body, and yield nothing for his future. The worker complains at length within his own soul. He becomes obsessed with the object of his envy, the person to whom the promotion was granted. He permits the disease to fester in his heart and cause grief. These cascading feelings will neither help him ascend in his profession nor alter the past. It is entirely demoralizing exercise that can magnify the original injury he feels.
Look, think about this. This is a way. This is what we call spiritual or Islamic cognitive behavioral therapy. Each one of these diseases has this. If you apply this, you just need to rewire how you're looking at the situation. What am I going to get out of feeling these ill sentiments towards another human being? And I have hasad towards fulan because of his money, and hasad towards fulana because of her children, and hasad towards fulan because of his good looks, and hasad towards fulana because of her family, and so on and so. Why? What am I going to get out of this? Who's being harmed the most by these feelings? Me. And you know what? This actually causes someone who allows themselves. There's a famous national speaker who shared in one of her talks about hasad. And she said that there was people who came to me seeking counseling, and in their counseling, they brought up that they feel so depressed about their life circumstance, and whenever they would feel this depression, they'd go to social media and they'd look at their friends' profiles, and they would see all the pictures that this person is taking pictures here and there and with this person and that person and so on and so forth. And it would just make me feel more and more depressed when I see all these pictures. And she reflected and she said, that's when I knew that hasad through social media is real. That's when I knew. That's what people do sometimes. This hasad only causes grief. And this grief manifests in more grief because it's a bottomless pit. You're so absorbed by what everyone else has that you see nothing good in your life. That's not a good way to live. Because this grief is going to become despair, and this despair is going to manifest in depression. And you know what? Guess who's going to be the biggest loser? Me. Me having hasad, is that going to change anything about circumstance? You know what? Maybe I should work hard and actually strive for what fulan or fulana strove for. And maybe Allah will give me something better. That's an attitude to live with, not a one of hasad. So the one who is most harmed by hasad is the envier. And this is what every one of us needs to realize. No. Envy is not one of these things that gives like this person free reign to cause terror because they're an envious person. I should be afraid because of the envy of fulan or fulana or fulan. No. The one who is harmed most by envy is the envier. This is what the Prophet ﷺ teaches us. Go on.
One of the interesting things about the Muslim world now is that it is filled with envy. When Muslims, for example, look at American Europeans, they hurl criticism applying all kinds of rhetoric. Ostensibly, one hears moral outrage, but the root of much of this rhetoric is envy. They have worldly possessions, and we do not. When Muslims glance toward the Gulf nations that have great stores of oil, they cannot resist passing judgment about how the Gulf Arabs squander Muslim money.
Okay.
This is a dialogue of it.
Okay, let's skip a few paragraphs.
It's a dialogue.
Which, it's not like completely untrue, but of course, sometimes the anger towards people who are corrupt in positions of power is not because of envy. It's because they're using the ummah's resources to wreak havoc. That's another reason. Anyway, we'll skip 2 paragraphs. Go ahead. That's why one of the important lessons to learn in the path of knowledge is that there is everyone you give and take from them. You could take something from somebody and reject something else from them, even if they're a person of knowledge, because no one's perfect, right? Everyone has their flaws, unless they're the Prophet ﷺ, who is aided by revelation. So this is something important. Go ahead.
The basis of remedy or the
The Imam
Okay.
says,
The Imam says that one way to uproot envy is to realize with solemn reflection that envy can never benefit its holder. One should also realize what people attain in terms of material wealth prestige is from God. He is all-knowing, we are not. The basis of remedy for envy is taqwa, or the awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or having an active awareness of Him as the ultimate power over all creation. This diffuses false notions of misappropriated blessings.
all right, what are the causes of envy? That's what he goes over in the next section. I'm going to summarize this for you. We're not going to read it. The first cause of envy is enmity, adawa. Harboring feelings of animosity towards another makes one highly susceptible to developing envy, right? What's another cause of envy? It's vying for one's affection or love, right? That you want someone so badly that you become envious because of their rejection. The Imam, and then he says in the next one, arrogance is a major cause of envy. So that's the third one. Arrogance. Why? Because as someone said it earlier, I think I should have all goodness. If someone else has it, I don't want them to have it anymore. It should be me. I should always be ahead. No one should get ahead of me. Another cause of envy, low self-esteem. The feeling that one's worth is compromised by the fact that someone else has gained more, right? Someone has a lot, doesn't make me feel comfortable. Why? I have low self-esteem. I feel that this person's success means something negative about me. Why should I see that? Why should I see that? If someone succeeds, I should pray for them to succeed more and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps me to succeed just like them, right? Envy is for you to want them to fail. That's envy, right? Love of leadership is another major cause of envy. Love of leadership. I need to be ahead. I need to be in control. I need to be on top. That's another reason why people fall into envy, and ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect us from that. Allahumma ameen. Only thing that remains is for us to take a quick look at this book. Take a quick look at this book. This book connects a lot of dots for us. This book, very colorful, very clear, very nice presentation. Take a quick look at it, and you'll see on envy. It has signs and symptoms, treatments, exceptions, right? And if you look at the signs and symptoms, you're going to see that there's envy towards people and what they possess, like we shared before. There's envy due to competition, right? And there's envy that manifests in actions to remove blessings from the hands of others, right? And then when it comes to the treatments, he says, be content with Allah. Is to shun envy by pushing it away. Is know that envy consumes good deeds. Know the danger, like we already explained. Is by supplicating for the one you envy. Make dua for them. Is by acting contrary to your whim, right? Push back against it, right? Is by seeking your own provisions. Instead of envying someone, why don't you work just as hard as they are? And maybe perhaps you'll succeed. Seek your own provisions. Don't sit there and just have a negative mindset towards it. No, don't. Are there exceptions to envy? Yeah. There's something called ghibta. Ghibta is when you wish you had what someone has, even though you don't necessarily want them to lose their blessing. You see someone blessed with knowledge and understanding, you say, I want knowledge and understanding too. I wish I had that blessing. But I'm not going to want that person to lose it. Why? What would I get out of that person losing their knowledge and wisdom and understanding? Right? What's an exception to envy? Is for you to have this good ghibta towards someone with wealth. that uses their wealth for goodness, saying, I wish I had money like fulan, so that I could give and so that I could help people in need just like them. And that's an exception to it, right? The envy that is for righteous reasons is not envy that wants there to be ruin or loss. The envy that's for righteous reasons is healthy competition and seeking Allah's rida. I wish I could pray like this person prays, or read Quran like this person read Quran, or I wish I can strive for goodness like this person strives for goodness. This is about the subject of envy, and this is pretty much a summary of the subject. There's one last thing. Surah Al-Duha. Surah Al-Duha tells us, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Right? So we said, don't speak of your blessings, right? Conceal your blessings. Doesn't the Quran say, as for the blessings of your Lord, speak of them? وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. How can we reconcile between this ayah and this hadith? What does وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ mean? Who knows? Who can explain it? Who knows how to explain وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ? Go ahead. Huh? To be aware of it and acknowledge it. That's part of it. التحدث بالنعمة means for you to do something more than just acknowledge it. Go ahead. ليش؟ أيوة. تمام. Look, بعبارة أخرى يتضمن هذا المعنى كذلك. أدي شكر النعمة. That's what وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث means. What does it mean? It doesn't mean speak of the blessings. It means show gratitude for those blessings. It means use those blessings in a way that's pleasing to Allah. That's what it means. It doesn't mean go speak to the world about your blessings. No, that would be so low. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just, you got a nice cup of coffee from Starbucks and you need to put a picture on Facebook so the whole world could see that you're a person of class because you go to Starbucks. Oh, this is Dunkin'. This is not from Dunkin'. This is from Radwan's coffee shop. But anyway, I got a nice cup of Starbucks because I'm a sophisticated person. And I'm going to post a picture on Facebook. And what? Why? Because Allah says, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Right? No, that's not what it means. It means for you to use the blessing of Allah upon you in a way that's pleasing to Him because you're a grateful person. So that's how we reconcile between these two. Allahu A'lam. All right, let's go through questions. If we have any. Allahu A'lam. Let's see. I was hoping we'd get to love of this world, but we weren't able to. All right. Can you you have Slido? Can you open it up? And actually, it'll help me if you read the questions. Ya Rab. He's going to let him read one, then we'll go to you.
Okay, Bismillah. So, if you're meant to hide blessings, then how can you protect yourself against open blessings like pregnancy and home ownership, etc.?
Yeah, look, obviously, you're not going to be able to conceal everything. Hiding blessings doesn't mean I'm going to go need to live in a black hole. You're not going to be able to hide your pregnancy, for example, unless you stow yourself away for 9 months and then you keep the baby hidden at home. No one's asking you to do that, yani. No one's asking you to do that. Of course, certain blessings are going to show. But if they show, then I pray Allah will protect it for me. But I'm not going to go take every single blessing that I have and, shove it down everyone's throat. Right? Don't be quick to share it. Even if you're innocent in what, especially if it hasn't been completed yet. It's still something that's pending, right? It's okay. Be thoughtful in the way you share. But sometimes we get too excited. You don't have bad intentions necessarily, but you get too excited. So guess what? You find yourself in a very precarious situation, right? You're someone who's been blessed to find someone, a potential suitor for marriage, right? And you get engaged. And you go announce to the whole world and you do a massive party. I'm engaged, right? And guess what? It doesn't work out, right? It doesn't work out. And then you find yourself in a state of regret because now everyone's going to find out it didn't work out. So don't rush to share your blessings. Enjoy them. Let things come to fruition before you decide to share them, right? So that's what's meant by that. Yeah, you're not going to be able to hide everything, but don't go out of your way to share everything either. There should be this balance. Allah alam.
Jazakumullah khair. So another one is, do you think the ayah and hadith speaking to lowering the gaze also hint at this topic of hasad, envy? Much jealousy seems to be around opposite gender.
Much jealousy seems to be around opposite gender. I'm trying to think with the person about how they are processing that. Potentially, like I don't know what you mean by that exactly. Like a guy would have hasad towards a female because of her appearance. I don't know. I don't know if that's what you mean or something else. If you'd wish, you could clarify. But the verse about lowering the gaze is actually about protecting yourself from lust. Perhaps sometimes you could lower your gaze from people's blessings too. Don't be keen on staring. Sometimes, sometimes people have a staring problem, and it could lead to ayn, right? Like someone sees someone dressed in a very appealing appearance, so they'll look up and down, and they'll just follow them with their gaze like this, all around, and like the person's creeped out, like why on earth is this person staring at me so hard, up and down? So sometimes people have a staring problem. That's definitely a disease in itself, and it could be linked with ayn. I just don't know how the opposite gender plays into that. If you want, you could explain more. All right, there was someone who had a direct question. I answered it? Okay, good.
Yeah, there's some of these that you answered, alhamdulillah, Shaykh, like during the reminder, but I'll ask some. How, I think we answered this as well, but maybe just to reiterate, how can someone differentiate between being ambitious and being content with what he or she has? But I think you answered this.
Well, look, when we say be content with what you have, it doesn't mean don't be ambitious. It means don't always undermine what you have and see what everyone else has as great. This because it's a problem. Sometimes someone might be in a very, very blessed situation, that they have something really good, but because their eye is always looking somewhere else, they can never appreciate what's in front of their eyes. Does this happen to people in their lives? Yeah, it does. It happens a lot to people in their lives, right? That the eye is always on what others have. Let me focus inwardly and see, maybe my life has also substantial blessings that I've overlooked, right? Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakumullah khair. So another one, which maybe just a summary would be nice, because I know we went over this in the last little bit, like the purification of envy, or what can we do? Because this question relates to, we are flawed, and not being envious is easier said than done. What do we do when we do feel envy and sadness that Allah isn't giving us what we desire? So I think we went over it, but maybe just like summary.
Let me look. Don't say we're flawed and we're all fallen to envy. Look, the defining factor in why this is a disease is that in envy you want someone to experience ruin. You want someone to lose. That's not something that could be justifiable. That's not something that could be justifiable. It could be from the weakness of the nafs, that I'm so absorbed with all of the problems I'm in, that I just feel this sense of envy towards those who don't experience what I have. But I should be cognizant not to allow this feeling to run wild. It's never justifiable. Yeah, we're all susceptible to envy, but we're never excused in allowing that envy to be in our hearts. No, no, no. Don't be someone who's envious, because you're not going to have an excuse before Allah Azza wa Jal for carrying such ill will towards people. Yeah. So, Wallahu alam.
Jazakumullah khair. And then the second part of that question is, the cures like we talked about. So you said counterbalance disease with contentment, true gratitude, making dua for the person, maybe doing dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever these things are, but maybe just to that point, like what is the routine that you would suggest to people?
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, I think you should regularly have a regimen of making dua for others, especially those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave His favor. Remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed these individuals and has given them. And you should love what Allah chose. That's what you should remind yourself. That's how you should look at it. Allah chose this. I love what Allah chose. And I'm going to make dua for this because Allah chose this for that person. That's one thing you should do. The other thing you should do is, again, look inwardly, look carefully. Try to appreciate and show shukr. See, this is the thing. Someone who has hasad and envy in their heart is not someone who's grateful. Because Allah tells you, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you were to truly try to enumerate these blessings of Allah upon you, you will not be able to. Someone who is envious is oblivious. Someone who is envious is oblivious to the countless blessings that Allah put at their disposal. Yes. How can you know the difference between black magic? Look, if someone is experiencing abnormal things in their life, or things that they can't find a clear explanation for, look, there's a layer to treatment. There's layers to treatment, right? There's layers to treatment whenever you're going through a difficulty in your life. Let me figure out, are there stressors that lead to these conclusions? Are there stressors? What do I mean by stressors? Like, is there something that is triggering this result? All right, if their answer is yes, let me address those triggers and see if it changes anything. If that doesn't address the situation, then let me perhaps try to consider ruqya. Ruqya is a form of spiritual healing. You can go to someone who does ruqya, is very familiar with the verses, the hadiths, the du'as that are said, and in that process, the person will survey what your reaction, if any, is to, right? Sometimes there will be a reaction. What do I mean by reaction? Sometimes for people it manifests in different ways. Exhaustion, sadness, sleepiness, something else. And then if they see that trigger coming from certain verses that relate to hasad, or certain verses that relate to stress and anxiety, or certain verses that relate to sihr or mess, then they'll know that, just like when you go to the doctor, they'll know that the cause of your ailment is X, Y, or Z. So it's not something that you can necessarily figure out on your own, but there is recourse that you can seek through that. Wallahu alam. Yeah. What else we got?
There's a couple of questions related to non-Muslims on this topic.
Okay.
So hopefully we can address it. The theme is basically, when I envy a non-Muslim, or if I want to make and purify it and make dua for a non-Muslim, what can I do in that regard? So they're envying a non-Muslim. They want to purify it, make dua for the non-Muslim. What are they allowed to basically make dua for them?
If they're alive, You can make any dua in the world that you want for them. May Allah give them guidance. May Allah fill their hearts with nur. May Allah show them Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a means for them to be guided or a means for them to Jannah. Make any dua you want. There's nothing wrong with making dua for non-Muslims who are living. You can make any dua in the world that you want for them, right? As long as it's not a dua of oppression, but if you could make any good dua for them. But on another note, if you envy someone who doesn't have Islam, your mind is absolutely twisted to what blessings are. All right. Well, you know what? This is a good question. Like, all right, if someone gave you a choice, would you rather have $50 million or Islam? Which one would you choose? Which one would you choose? Islam. Why? $50 million, as soon as this person's dead, is all going to be gone. And then there's going to be eternal punishment. Why on earth would I want $50 million? Someone could be a smart guy and say, well, you know what? I'll take the $50 million and then I'll become Muslim. That's not what I'm asking, right? Imagine having $50 million in your bank account and never knowing Islam until the day you die, or living poverty for the rest of your days, but being blessed with Islam. Who has something greater? Of course, Islam. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
There was another theme, although it's probably a longer discussion, but basically the theme was about envy between spouses or to other couples, and how can you address this envy between you and your spouse, basically. And the envy can relate to many things about that spouse's life, maybe their friends group, or so on and so forth. There's many questions like this. So I know there's probably a greater discussion of marriage counseling and things like this, but it still relates to this disease of the heart. So I know it's probably too long of a discussion to get into, but that's some of the theme of the question.
Some of the themes of the question is envy between spouses. It's a very sad state, if the one that you're supposed to have the closest relationship to is someone you envy for what they have, whether it's because of their job or their friends or whatnot. One of the strangest things that I heard that sometimes happens is envy between spouses over the children. The children love mama or love baba, and the other spouse becomes envious. I envy you because all the kids like you. They hate me, man. Maybe I should give them more chocolate and more money. Maybe they'll start loving me. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, anyone wants to ask a direct question? Yeah, go ahead. Uh-huh. Look, I know that very good question. So I know that you should not be posting your blessings out there, but sometimes you need it for the sake of advancing your career or your opportunities. So you have something like LinkedIn. You're not trying to boast, but you want opportunity to come your way. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, look, within reason and with clear purpose. Within reason and with clear purpose. The life that we live in today is very public. Right, the life that we live in today is very public, and part of why social media is such a big thing is because it opens doors of opportunity for people from nothing. Just because you could make a video, you could become king of the world, right? Just because you can make a video. So it does give a great perk, and that's why people need to go public with things sometimes. So within reason and with good purpose, that's what I would say. I would say that it is quite toxic if every part of my life I program myself in a way that every part of my life and every blessing I have needs to be announced to the world. But if some of that needs to be mentioned, again, for a clear purpose, then that's fine. And then I'll do my due diligence on the other end by protecting myself with adhkar, with ruqya, and with maintaining a good spiritual state. Wallahu a'lam. How can you protect yourself from envy and hasad? There's a lot of things you could do. Among them is doing the adhkar of sabah and masa. The morning and night remembrances build a spiritual capacity for you, right? Where are these taken from? These are taken from the Quran, from the Sunnah. They're good du'as that serve different purposes, right? What do I mean by spiritual capacity? Like imagine you have like this force field around you. Like if someone was trying to throw something at you, deflected it away. Think of it like that. If you have this spiritual capacity, that if something was directed towards you, whether it's envy or a whisper from the shaitan, it won't get through so easily. We say the same solution for whispers, by the way. Sometimes people, they have overpowering whispers from the devil, and it makes them so sad. You know what's the solution to this? This person needs to build a stronger spiritual capacity. They need to do more intense regimens of dhikr, dua, of reading Quran. Why? Because the more that my spiritual state strengthens, the weaker that the influence of the shaitan will be. You guys got that? The more my spiritual state strength, and what's the proof of this? Look at Umar. Sayyidina Umar al-Faruq, whenever he would go down a path, the shaitan would go seek another path. He wouldn't go near Umar. He was afraid of Umar. Right? Same thing, that when you're strong spiritually, it'll protect you to a greater extent. Doesn't mean it's going to make you bulletproof. You still might be affected, right? By the will of Allah, but at least I'll do my due diligence. That's why we have these adhkar, Ayat al-Kursi, the last two of al-Baqarah, the last three of Surah al-Hashr. That's why we say the mu'awwidhat, all right? We recite Surah al-Ikhlas and Falaq and Nas. That's why we recite them and we blow on our hands and wipe on our bodies. That's why we say other ad'iya and adhkar. So that's the best way to protect yourself. Build a stronger spiritual capacity through remembrance of Allah. It's the fortress of dhikr for a reason, right? It's the fortress of remembrance. So like a fortress, just like a fort protects you. Same sense as that. Wallahu alam. Anyone else have a direct question? We have like 2-3 minutes left. Anyone else have a direct question? Any direct questions? Good? Jazakumullah khair. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Inshallah, I'll see you guys next week as we continue with حب الدنيا and غفلة. حب الدنيا and غفلة. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم. If you all could just please help with the tables and chairs, that would be appreciated.